This is the voice of the New York Football Giants, Bob Papa, and you are listening to the best throughout Europe, the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast.
Welcome back, Giants fans, to the latest edition of the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast, proudly in association, as always, with Andy's Man Club. Lads, remember, it is okay to talk. In this episode, we are back to 66% British, 33% Irish, but as always, 100% Giants. Dan and Shane are unavailable due to work, but joining me for this one is Kev and Aaron and boys. Episode 250. First 80 episodes of the show were audio only before we decided that we just couldn't hide these beautiful faces from the audience any longer. And we've now done 170 live shows, but that's not all. We've also done 35 bonus episodes, including our interview series from last year, where we uncovered the undrafted rookie free agent, Aaron, who spent a year on the practice squad before joining properly. We also had our Munich vlog, which chronicled the trip to Munich, obviously last season. 3 live draft shows, totaling over 1,000 views between all of those, which is incredible. We've interviewed former and current players, both on the pod and in the locker room. What a whirlwind, Kev. What a whirlwind.
It's been crazy, mate, to think, the little beginnings of a couple of us. I'm sitting in my bedroom on the floor with an iPad, chatting away to lads, and how it's gone to this. And it's not just I'm not saying it's a big thing or anything, but it's definitely grown into something that we can be proud of, to be honest. And I'm so glad to be on with you two boys, and just glad the other two boys can't come on. I'm on with the podfather, the producer extraordinaire, and one of the best free agent signings in all of Podland. So yeah, I mean, I'm chuffed to make it 250, and like I said before, posted out on Facebook earlier on. Here's to many, many more, because although the team haven't been great while we've been doing this podcast, I think the interactions we've got and me getting to know you guys so well, and some of the people who watch and listen, and the community we've built it has been absolutely phenomenal. And I love the fact that we chat away here and talk about our upsets, our small wins when we get them, but we get to have our therapy sessions, as we always say, with each other, and it definitely makes supporting this team a little bit easier.
As Keith says here, 250 shows covering about 9 wins. It definitely feels like it, I tell you that. Aaron, new kid on the block, obviously. There's still plenty to look forward to, though, isn't there?
Yeah, and the 250 shows. Let's hope that there's more than 9 wins in the next 250 shows, right? let's hope we get 9 wins in about 16 weeks at some point, and maybe make a playoff game and that. So maybe not this year, but hopefully in a year not too far future. But either way, I think obviously I joined during with the draft coverage and some O-line things. There's obviously with the team not playing so well, it's developed us into more rounded NFL experts, college experts. We've got draft gurus, we've got position gurus, we've got travel blogs. What more can you want from a podcast? If we were winning every week, we wouldn't be delivering all of that content.
It's very true. It's very true. We do kind of try and find ways to make the season fun, because it's not sort of thing, and that's all come in. Before we get going, though, we're going to be talking about the Eagles now, but obviously we're talking about the Eagles in 2 weeks' time as well, because we will be facing them again, and it is that one where we have our meetup for this season in association with our friends at the New York Giants Fans UK Facebook group, Andy and Keith. So make sure you do come down Belushi's London Bridge It is the away game at the Eagles that we will be watching. It is when the clocks will have gone back over here, but not in America. So it means that we get a nice early kickoff of 5 p.m. We will be down at Belushi's from 4 p.m. until late. That is Sunday, October 26th. Make sure you get down there. I'm going to steal something from Bobby here, and I'm going to say, you'll be glad you did. Right. Before we begin, if you're watching on YouTube, X, Facebook, please do get involved in the comments, like this video, subscribe if you aren't already, hit the notification bell, all that lovely stuff. Make sure all you audio listeners rate us on your podcast platform of choice. Aaron, how many stars?
5 stars.
All 5 stars. Thank you very, very much. There isn't any major news, but I'm going to start with some quarterback news from the league that maybe speaks volumes about how the rest of the teams view our backups. So yesterday saw the first quarterback trade of the actual season, with the Bengals making that eyebrow-raising in-division move for Joe Flacco, the recently benched quarterback who is 40 years old. Flacco was benched in favour of rookie Dylan Gabriel, and was probably the cheapest and easiest option for the Bengals to make an in-division trade with the Browns. However, with 2 quarterbacks on our roster who are both veterans, there were a number of people out there who maybe thought that the Giants would have at least entertained a phone call, shall we say. Now, according to Diana Rossini, who's a senior writer or senior insider, should I say, for The Athletic, a call to the Giants was never made at all. For Winston, I can kind of understand it. Some people might not want to take on that contract. It's a 2-year contract. They probably only want a shorter stopgap. And obviously, we are looking at having him as our backup to Jackson Dart next season, I would imagine. However, it seems that with Wilson, you would kind of expect a team maybe to explore the opportunity with his contract that he's got, which is obviously a lot less and a lesser contract because it's only until the end of the season. And obviously he does have that experience, albeit not maybe going quite as well this season or 2 seasons ago when he was in Denver. Aaron, are we looking at a situation here with Wilson where, as much as we would likely listen to offers, those phone calls may never actually come?
I mean, I don't know. If I was, would I want Flacco or Wilson? It's pretty close. I mean, Flacco's done a good job as a veteran QB over the last couple of years. Browns, then at the Colts, and then back at the Browns again. I'm not sure. I wonder how much this is about the Browns wanting to get Flacco off the roster, given that they've got 2 rookie QBs and a QB that might be returning off the pup that they can't afford to cut, and needing to clear a roster spot for a third QB in the thing. And you know, if you look at the compensation, it's an exchange of picks. So it's a 5th for a 6th. And if the Bengals do recover to a mid-round thing, and the Browns are, you know, potentially one of the 2 or 3 worst teams in the league, you're talking about a movement of maybe 20 picks in the draft at most. So this could be more about the Browns wanting to get Flacco off the roster and convincing the Bengals that they needed to, this was the right move for them, than I wouldn't rule out the Bengals dipping again. I'm sure Atlanta are desperate to get rid of Kirk Cousins as well. Like so that I don't know if it's I don't know if it's a necessary indictment on Wilson. Obviously Russell Wilson has a bit more of a reputation around maybe not being the nicest locker room guy, even though he's a Walter Payton Man of the Year and a great guy. There's always been a weird thing from ex-teammates of Russell Wilson, and maybe you don't want to bring that into the thing. I don't know about how much the scheme is a fit in Cincinnati for Russell and versus Flacco. Maybe Flacco's played in a similar scheme before or knows the scheme and can get up to speed quicker, and maybe that's it as well. But yeah, it's interesting. Also, I think the fans that didn't like the move the most was Green Bay, because obviously Flacco's already beaten once this season and he gets an opportunity to do it again this week. So I'm sure maybe that was what the thinking was we know this guy can beat Green Bay.
Kev, if the Giants potentially were to get rid of Russell Wilson, what do you think the kind of return will be on that? Because we, as Aaron just said, you look at what the Browns sort of got in return from the Bengals. It was I'm trying to remember if this is correct. I think they got it was Flacco and a sixth for a fifth, was it? I think. So what are we looking at for Russell Wilson? Really, do you think?
Well, I think you'd be after something kind of similar. It wouldn't be a huge amount because, let's face it, we've kind of have Dart now is nailed on starter for the rest of the year. So, and we have the Winston with a 2-year deal. So you'd be kind of looking at something similar. I wouldn't be surprised if Wilson kind of doesn't want to move. Like, he just wants to see out his contract here in New York, and then he can look for a new team at the end of this year on his terms. So, like, maybe there's a gentleman's agreement that if a team comes in, then Russell Wilson will get a chance to say whether he wanted to go there or not. So I do think there's a little bit of that element to it. And also, I think Aaron as well is nailing the head a little bit, as in, like, he's familiar with that division. I mean, this is his third team playing that division, between the Ravens, the Browns, the Bengals now. I mean, he just needs a stopgap next year to Steelers when Rodgers goes, and he's done all four. But I'm not too sure, like, how much you'd get. I mean, like, I know people will say, "Oh, we want a 5th-round pick for him" and stuff like that, but you kind of have to be realistic where people are. Like, we have no leverage in the sense that he's not playing for us; he is a backup. So a kind of a pick swap would be something that you could look into. But is that worth it? It's like Aaron said, moving 20 places in a draft worth it, because the way Dart plays, there's a chance that he you could see himself getting injured throughout this season. And then where do you look then? Then you're in cap trouble and trying to get another quarterback off the street to come in. Whereas it kind of gives the 3 there now, gives you that protection and that insurance for Jackson Dart for the rest of the season.
Yep, totally agree. Totally agree with all of that. Russell Wilson has got to a point in his career where he can kind of just sit for the rest of the year if necessary. And like you say, if he wants to continue next year, it's his prerogative and down to him. He gets to sort of choose the rest of it. And I'm sure when you get to that kind of age, maybe that's the way you're thinking. Obviously not Joe Flacco, though. Joe Flacco will go wherever he's got a little opportunity to go. I do worry for him. I know this is not a Bengals podcast, but I do worry for him behind that Bengals offensive line, because he is 40 years old and is not going to be able to move. Joe Burrow, he has a little bit of escapability in playmaking about him that Joe Flacco maybe doesn't have. So there is a potential chance that against the Steelers, I think it's next week, they play the Steelers, he could be driven through the ground, really.
I think he might use his veteran savviness and be like, 1-2, read, throw away. There won't be much going to third and fourth options, I don't think, with Joe Flacco, because let's face it as well, like, he sort of used that veteran savviness over the years. He hasn't really been injured that much, to be honest. So, I think it'll be a very much, quick fire offense and 1-2, 3, throw it away.
Right, and as always, we'll close out with the injury report on the news. So the injury report has come out with the game status for Thursday night, or tomorrow night, as it will be. So Swayze Bozeman is out with an ankle injury. Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles is also out with a hamstring injury, and Darius Slayton has been ruled out with a hamstring injury. No doubt Aaron, when he goes into offense, will have a little chat about what the hell we're going to do at wide receiver there with Darius Slayton out. I'm no doubt you'll also go into this one, so I won't touch too much into it. But Jermaine Illuminor is questionable with a back injury, which is an interesting wrinkle there. But there is a potential chance for a rookie to step in there and hopefully do well. On the terms of the Eagles, Grant Calcaterra, he has got an oblique injury. He's been ruled out, and one of their offensive linemen, Landon Dickerson, has been ruled out with an ankle injury. Jalen Carter has a heel injury and Nakobe Dean has a knee injury. They are both questionable to play. However, I believe that they are both expected to play, especially Jalen Carter, who is having a pretty damn good season so far. So actually moving on to the game, the Eagles may be coming off the back of a loss to the Broncos, but they still enter the week at 4-1. I think the biggest problem with the Eagles, though, is that they have not been playing their best football and have mostly been stumbling to victories. I think it's fair to say they've had games where they've started hot and then they've lost momentum and they've let teams come back and they've struggled to wins. Or like what happened last week, they end up losing the game and they end up throwing it away. And they've started slow and then turned up later in the game and they've had to kind of really push themselves to actually get the victory, and it just hasn't been pretty. They've had a lot of frustrated figures in their locker room with offensive focus switching from a pure passing attack to a pure running attack from week to week. And there are a lot of eyes on their new offensive coordinator, Kevin Patullo, who took over from Kellen Moore, who was the Saints head coach, and how he's going to respond to the criticism that he abandoned the run against the Broncos. His defense against that has not gone down well with Eagles fans because he partially threw Hurts under the bus, hinting that the outcome of the RPOs were under Hurts' control and not his, and that's why they abandoned the run on those. Not quite sure how smart of a ploy that is, but there you go. But regardless of this, the Eagles are still 7.5 favourites, 7.5 point favourites, should I say, coming into this game. They've won 7 of the last 8 meetings between the two teams, including the playoffs, and they've also won 15 of the last 18 games between the two teams. It is not a good omen. We all know what happens. We also all know that win in the last 8 meetings was the absolute nothingness win at the end of the season in week 18. So when you actually look at it, they've won 7 of the last 7 meaningful games against the two. Between the two teams. So not ideal. Aaron, offensively against the Saints, we were a little bit of an embarrassment. How do you see us actually being able to turn this round, considering we're going to be without not only wide receiver 1, but wide receiver 2 as well?
Yeah. So just some stats for you, I guess. The Giants' offense is 32nd in the league in red zone scoring at 31.58%. We're 28th in points per game at 17.4, and 30th on third down with 31.58 per conversion rate. So I would say we want to improve those numbers, but we have to do it without our two starting outside wide receivers. So no Neighbours, no Slayton, as we've discussed. And potentially without a starting right tackle in Jermaine Illuminor. And obviously, anytime you make changes on the O-line, that's usually where problems happen, not just the obviously the level of a backup offensive lineman, but of any group on the team. Reps together is really, really important. So that's obviously a concern. We are expecting Tracy to be back in the RB room. He's got no designation for the game, but with a 10-day rest after this game, I'd expect he'd be on a snap count. They won't want to. He won't be coming back in to be a full-time starter. I would very much doubt with the type of injury that he's got. It's looking at some of the injury doctors that you find on Twitter. They say that there's quite a high likelihood of reoccurrence with this type of injury. So it's one that you do want to heal properly. It's not like a lower ankle sprain where it's unlikely to re-injure if you come back too quickly. So yeah, it's quite interesting when we move on to how do we win the game? How do we score enough points to win this game as an offense? Well, I'll go back to what I said before the Chargers game. It requires complementary football. Firstly, let's win the turnover battle. Incidentally, the Eagles are +4 and the Giants are -5 on the season. So maybe we're due for some regression there, and everything regresses to the mean. So maybe we'll have a little bit of help on both sides of the ball on that one. Fingers crossed. Don't commit penalties. Can anyone hear Tom Coughlin when I say that? Don't turn the ball over. Don't commit penalties. Those were greater days, maybe. Keep the game close. Don't get behind on the scoreboard. Keep the chains moving and convert on explosive play. So the Giants went 7 for 7 on deep passes against the Cowboys. They are 0-15 on the rest of the season. So having a few explosives can really change the game. So one answer to the question around wide receiver, Craig, is maybe we're going to see little Jordan Humphrey get the call up. That's what everyone's saying. He's going to get the elevation from the practice squad. And he gives the guy that caught a 29-yard pass for Dart's first preseason touchdown. So he's a sort of guy that maybe is something that we'll see. I said on the review show as well that I would talk about the O-line and kind of their feedback. We had issues at right tackle and both guard spots. Maybe the right tackle injury explains Illuminor was injured, playing with a back injury. Maybe that was some of the effect that he had. He certainly didn't. He had a rough time against Brian Bazee. JMS might have had his best game as a Giant. Actually, he had a really good both in pass and run game, and it's worth highlighting that. I think that was really worth calling out. And Andrew Thomas has been immaculate coming back. In fact, I was reading some stats that he has given up 0 pressures, 0 sacks, 0 hurries, and he's like 100% perfect on his pass blocking this season. So he has come back. He is clearly a top 3 tackle in the league. There's no worry about left tackle, and as long as he stays healthy, one of our 4 positions is locked down. But that I'm now at the point where I've seen enough, given where we are in the season, and maybe this game isn't the right game. Maybe it's after the 10 days is the right time to play it. I want to try and see something on the inside, so whether we can improve it. So we've got to get our best 5 guys on the field, and that's always what you're trying to do with your O-line group. And actually, maybe we'll have the opportunity to see Bo at right tackle this week. So obviously with Illuminor questionable, I kind of expect him to go, but maybe there'll be a reps management or it's a pain management thing, and we'll see Bo step in if he struggles. But one option of blooding Bo at right tackle, obviously he's filled in when Hudson blew his chance at left tackle, and is that actually if Bo can do right tackle, Jermaine was brought in originally to play guard. So can we play Bo at tackle, Jermaine at guard, and see an improvement? Obviously, that won't happen this week, but maybe if Bo plays this week at tackle, going forward, we'll see Jermaine come in at guard and maybe Shaw at right guard. Both guards had a horrible game, to be perfectly honest, both in the run and the pass. GVR got driven back into Scatterboo, which forced him to throw the flea flicker back early, and that meant Jackson Dart didn't get enough on it to really beat the defense and was led to that incompletion on the flea flicker. So it really does start with that O-line being competent. Obviously, Jalen Carter, Kobe Dean, both being questionable. Carter's an interesting one. So he was on the injury report the first 2 days, and he's had a heel injury pop up, and he was limited. They're the ones that really do concern me if I'm setting my fantasy lineup. Obviously, I don't play individual defensive players. It's disgusting. Why would you want any defensive players anywhere near your fantasy lineup? But if I see an offensive player that's clear on the practice report for the first 2 days and then pops up as a limited practice on his last one, that's where I really worry about their fitness, because it's something that's crept up in training. It's something that's cropped up late, and maybe they'll dress but won't be as effective in the game. Nakobe Dean's like been a full practice, and is still questionable. I think it's probably going to go. I don't think that's an issue. But obviously, that one thing that the Eagles defense has I think they're 28th in the league on, is runs per game. So it's running yards they've given up per game. So I think that's where there's a slight opportunity around the yardage or the route to having a successful game. I mentioned last week we've been missing Tracy, so if we can get Dart to run some read option with both an interior and exterior run, outside zone run. I think Tracy was in the interview in the locker room yesterday talking about how he's more of an outside zone guy and Scatterboo's more of a power back. And I think that's the complement. Both could do work in the receiving game. Both can do, it's not like, Tracy's on the field, it must be an outside run, or Scatterboo's on the field, it must be an inside run. They've both got elements in the passing game. Both can block, both can and do these sort of things. So I think the 1-2 punch that we haven't really seen, because obviously Scatterboo missed time in the preseason and wasn't there available in was only just on a snap count in the first game. And then obviously Tracy got injured in the second game, and that's when we start to see more Scatterboo. So I think seeing that offense with Dart as well, obviously it's the first time that Dart will have handed off to Tracy in a game, will be really interesting to see how we can really use that backfield to create problems. Obviously, without the wide receivers, we're going to rely on the 2 tight end sets that we did last week. And so we should see a healthy dose of Bellinger, who had an excellent game last week, and Theo Johnson, who I will let listeners know, obviously gamble responsibly. He's 4-1 for an anytime touchdown, and he'll be looking to extend his 2-game streak to a 3-game streak. And so I fancy that as a little sneaky pound on a anytime touchdown for Theo. But obviously with the 2 tight end set, we kind of, I think, all called it when we was after Bellinger's catch to get us down to the 1. We thought, this is definitely a handoff to Scatterboo, and it was a dink pass over the top straight to Theo Johnson for the touchdown. And that's the sort of thing that I think we need to do is lean into the 2 tight end, lean into the Bellinger possibly playing a bit more H-back role into the backfield as a fullback. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Bellinger, Tracy, and Scatterboo all in the backfield at some point together, just to give that different look around the offense. The hardest part with that type of offense is you cut down on the likely explosive plays. So you have to go a higher number of plays in the drive, because you're going 4 or 5 yards every play. You're not getting the big 15, 20, 25 chunks. So again, coming back to that complete complementary football. So I know I'm offense, but just to touch on special teams, we rank 4th on kick returns. So our starting field position is 4th in the league. And our opponent return average is the 4th best in the league. So our special teams are really giving us an edge on field position. I think that transfers quite well over to punt as well. So the idea that we might be able to, shorten the field for our quarterback a little bit, play some complementary football, I think all comes into that kind of thing. So with that being said, Craig, I'll come to you first. With the points are set at 40.5 for the over-under for the game, and Eagles are 7.5-point favourites. So that gives us an implied points total of 16.5, 17 points. Do you see a path to us scoring 25 points and making it an exciting game that we all want to get up for at 1 a.m. to watch, or is it going to be a slog to get 17 points in a losing effort?
Might be tipping my hat a little bit to prediction time later, but not really. No. I think if we're going to have a path to 25 points, we aren't just scoring points offensively. It's the only way. Like that, I cannot see this offense the way, and pun intended, that we are hamstrung by the wide receiver position, putting up over 20 points. It just doesn't seem plausible to me when you're having to rely on little Jordan Humphrey's first regular season game of the season, Jalen Hyatt, who doesn't seem to do anything blocking, let alone catching the ball, Bo Collins, who isn't finishing his route, so you never know where he's going to be, and Wan'Dale Robinson, who I think Wan'Dale takes a lot of unnecessary shots from analysts and from content creators and a lot of people. I think Wan'Dale is a lot better than I think he's thought of in this fan base. However, he is a situational player. He's not a big player. He's a small player. He is good at getting dump off dirty yards. He's not going to get you. He's not going to take the top off a defense, and he's definitely not going to go up a contested catch against two other receivers and come down with the ball. So when you're having to rely on that, the defense has got to supplement that in order to even get close to a points total like that.
Kev, how about you? You got any confidence that we can exceed that 17-point total and make it an exciting game?
Yeah, I think a few things need to go our way. I mean, I definitely agree with Craig. Like, if we can get some turnovers on defense and maybe get defensive score, that definitely helps. But from an offensive point of view, I mean, Theo Johnson needs to have a big game. He needs to be that big athletic tight end that we kind of drafted at the beginning of last year. He needs to sort of step up and be a go-to guy. We'll see a lot of two tight end sets. I think we'll see a lot of two full running backs sets, like you said, Aaron. I mean, don't be surprised to see, Tracy and Scotty lining up in the backfield, and then Tracy with his wide receiver background going out in motion, going out into the slot or out wider. And also don't be surprised to see Theo Johnson line up on the line along with Bellinger, and then see Theo Johnson go to the X receiver position. A few things need to go our way. Like I said, a few people need to have big games. I think Tracy's huge. I think his Cam Scatterby can catch passes out of the backfield, yes, and he is good at it. But I think Tracy is a difference maker when it comes to stuff like that as well. He's a very good runner, but also catching on the backfield, I think, sort of is one of his specialities. So I think, if Johnson can sort of spread the field out a bit, sort of get up that seam, and make the defense drop a little bit up the middle, Tracy leaking out in the backfield could be huge. So if he clears those linebackers, and then Tracy's on a little Texas route coming out of the backfield, he can pick up that space that those linebackers have vacated, and we kind of pick up yards like that. And it might be a case of, I know you touched on it, like 4 or 5 yards, it might be a case of just trying to plug away and being mistake-free and just going up the field and 10-play drives or something like that to try and, get ourselves to punch into the red zone. And red zone has to change. It has to. We just have to work things out. I mean, you're saying about having the 3 in the backfield there. You're going back to the triple option. You're already doing that, firing out the ball old school, before Rook Nugget decided to pass the ball forward. Is it likely? No. Is it possible? Yes. But, we're going to have to pick up the odd chunk play as well as be very efficient moving the ball along the ground.
Yeah, I think Tracy, absolutely, if he's healthy and can go fully, he's our greatest route to explosive plays. That was something of a trademark of his running last year, was there were a number of explosive runs from Tracy. So it'll be really good for that. I do worry about how well we've been blocking the run, certainly on the interior. Albeit Bellinger Scatterboo, Andrew Thomas. Maybe we can get some outside run blocking with some flow and some action out of the backfield. Obviously, I'm still going on about Scatterboo's block on the Wandale's run from last week. That kind of explosive blocking. If Wandale trusts Scatterboo to win that block, there's a lot more yardage on the outside if he follows that. Obviously, on a fourth down, the first thing is get the line to gain, and Wandale did that. And you know, I won't complain about that at all, but. There is that kind of option for that explosive play. And I
want to see Scatterboo block for Tracy. That's what I want to see. I want to see some big explosive plays, Scatterboo on the outside. And don't be surprised, Bob, usually Scatterboo and Tracy, like both of them go on routes from the backfield as well. Like, you know, I'm interested to see that this week.
Yeah, and I think I'm not sure we'll see Dart's legs be as effective this week. Eagles defense run quite a lot of cover three, most predominantly run cover three. They're running zone and man at literally like 16th and 17th ranked rates in the league. So they're mixing up man and zone quite a lot. And I think maybe they'll play a little bit heavier man, given that they don't trust our wide receivers. We're on backup wide receivers, and maybe they think that the likelihood of them beating man is different. But obviously, when you play man, the one thing that you tend to do is turn your back to the quarterback. And that's where the quarterback can beat you on big runs. So maybe they'll just go, I think we can cover these guys whether we play man or zone, and play a heavy zone scheme against us, and actually reduce the effectiveness of Dart with his legs on the scrambles.
Kev, you are Mr. Defense this time after Aaron's cameo last week. What are you seeing for us defensively in this game? Because we've been frustrating, but we've been close.
Yeah, very, very much so. I mean, let's be honest. Shane Bowen is not getting the best out of the players on this defense. We haven't necessarily got bad players on this defense. One or two I might mention in a minute, but overall we've actually got quite a good personnel on the defense. But he's just not getting the best out of them. We're running such a vanilla defense. The D line's getting there. I mean, the pass rushers are they're getting there. The problem is the defense is so vanilla in the secondary that the QB can make his read so quickly and get the ball out. That's the problem. We're not confusing him. We're not making him think in the pocket. He's seeing his reads and he's throwing the ball well before our D line can get there. And the problem is they're winning. Dexter's winning his double teams. Carter's winning his battles on the edge, along with Burns and Thibodeau. And it's so frustrating to see that, especially when Spencer Rattler called out the Giants' secondary coverage pre-game. So, so that's just my little rant quickly on the defense in general. I just need to not be so vanilla. But let's talk about the Eagles, though. So the Eagles, again, I mean, they're just the Eagles, and it's just so annoying that they've gone from elite in 2024, Super Bowl champs, number one Russian attack, and they've had a bit of an identity collapse. They've got no real rhythm. They've got shaky production, and although the record is 4-1, what we would give for 4-1 now, but the performances just lack conviction. They just haven't been to the high standards that they set themselves last year. It's unclear whether they're a run team now or a pass heavy team. I read somewhere earlier on that other defense coordinators are saying they're quite predictable and they're slow at adjusting their play calling throughout the game. What is it? I think they're in their fourth offensive coordinator in 5 years. Hurts has had 6 different play callers in his career. There's been no real continuity this year. The O-line has had some injuries. They've had communication errors. They've had mental errors. They've had penalties. The receivers have lined up in the wrong positions. They were so good at RPO game, and that just hasn't been consistent. And in saying all that, how infuriating is it that they are 4-1 still, and they're still just this juggernaut able to grind out wins? It's like good teams find ways to win, bad teams find ways to lose. It's always the same. But speaking of their season so far, total yards per game is 261.6, which is 30th, near the bottom, obviously. Passing yards, 161. .8, which is 31st. Rushing yards, 99.8, which is 25th. We'll say now the red zone efficiency is 92.3, which is elite, obviously the first in the league. So, the red zone is awesome, compared to ours, which is absolutely terrible. But otherwise, they're quite inefficient and erratic in some of the other areas. Like last week against the Broncos, they led 17-3 and they ended up losing 21-17. Like Barkley rushed for 30 yards. They only had one long touchdown reception. There's penalties, very poor execution just led to an absolute collapse. So, a couple of things like O-line pressure, there's opportunity there. The offense is a little bit predictable. Can we sort of like take advantage of that? Disguise coverage, blitz packages. They're prone to mistakes. Can we jump on those mistakes when they make them? Try and keep them out of the red zone. They finish off drives so well. I think a tagline is the Eagles, like they're very, very talented, but they're a little bit broken at the moment. So can we take advantage of that? So just to speak on some positions specifically, quarterback Jalen Hurts, 11 total touchdowns, only 1 turnover, as top 3 in the NFL. But in the second half of games, he can be quite poor. His production does drop off. Pressure him. Let's get after him. Thibodeau, Burns, Dex, collapse that pocket. Do we put a spy in for him? Does Bobby Okereke or Mursau sort of try and contain a scramble? Do we see Carter in that position this week? Have them people on the field as a more, not saying Carter play linebacker all the time, I'm not saying that specifically for this game, to look after someone like Jalen Hurts, who has been playing quite well. Try and, collapse that pocket, get after him. And then the running back, Saquon Barkley, he's had carrying a bit of a knee injury this year. But last week he had just 6 carries, only 1 in the final 35 minutes. So do we look at maybe loading the box early? Do you know what I mean? Try and, see how explosive he is. Try and, crowd that area of the field. Their interior run blocking hasn't been good this season. Try and get after that. The wide receivers, AJ Brown and Smith, they haven't seen a lot of action until last week where the targets, skyrocketed. This week they had a heart-to-heart, Hurts, Barkley, Brown and Smith all got together to try and, get them the ball more and try and, get more production in the offense. But, Adebo needs to show that why he was signed to be a cornerback 1. Show exactly why. You're supposed to be a sticky man corner, physical. And please, whether you believe him to be the number 2 cornerback or not, the Flot is by far outplaying Banks. He has to see more of the snaps. He has to. I don't know why they keep subbing him in, especially on obvious third downs and man situations. When, there's definitely going to be a pass, obvious passing situations. They're taking Flot out and putting Banks in, and then Banks is getting done on double moves constantly. We need to see more of a Flot in there. Limit after the catch as well, because Brown's a big physical wide receiver. Players bounce off him. We need to wrap up. We need to be better at tackling these players. And the tight ends, Giants and tight ends, Giants defense and tight ends. Dallas Goedert, well, he's only had 3 straight games now with touchdowns. He's a big, massive red zone threat. How many do you think you'll get this week? Probably 2 against us. But we need to be tighter in those areas, especially in the linebacker areas. That sort of in the box. Account for him. Don't let him beat you on crossers because he's not the fastest. Personally, I'd match up Belton. I'd go more 3. I know last week we played more 3 safeties. I'd bring Belton in. His physicality, his coverage ability. Just stick on like Goddard. Don't let him get those productions yards that we always seem to give up. And then their offensive line. You talked about some injuries there. Landon Dickerson is out with an ankle. Brett Toth is subpar. He's not a good player. I don't know what his PFF grades are right now, but he is there to be taken advantage of. I know Lane Johnson has been playing through a shoulder injury as well. So, Dexter Lawrence he should be able to dominate Toth now and really go after sort of that interior offensive line. Because we need to be able to disrupt Hurts, get him out of his rhythm, make him make bad decisions to allow, coverage at the back end. The run defense, was it the Eagles? They went from 140 yards per game weeks 1 and 2 to 73 yards per game in the last 3 weeks. The Giants held the Saints last week to 88 yards. That's only 2.9 yards last week. Can we see more of that? Try and win the early downs. Get teams in 3rd and long. But when we get them in 3rd and long, don't bring Banks on. Or like I said, try and give up that. You've worked so hard. The defense must be so. The defensive line must be so gutted. You get someone in 3rd and long. We've done our job. Let's get off the field now and have a bit of a rest. And then we give up 3rd and long constantly, and it's just an absolute massive bugbear. Okereke, he leads tackle 48 tackles. He's tied 4th in the NFL. He needs to be able to plug gaps. He needs to have proper gap discipline. And Musa as well. He needs to have a big game. He's been excellent in run defense so far. He really gets after the ball. He sees ball, goes ball, and hits him. But both of them, because I think you said about the injuries at the moment, with Bozeman out and Files out, we're very light at linebacker. So these two are going to see a lot of snaps this week. So, we do, again, we don't want the defense on the field all the time anyway, but especially there where we can get taken advantage of. Because if they just be able to run the ball, yards after yards, them two's going to get absolutely knackered and they just run the ball on us, But blueprint to win is basically, like I said before, control the trenches on both sides. Really need to get after this offensive line, get in their face, disguise coverages. Don't make it so obvious what we're doing. Shift coverage over. Go from a cover 2 look to a cover 3. Go to a man blitz. Bottle up Barkley. Try and make. I'd go out early and really get on the run. Get on it. Make them one-dimensional. Make them go out and try and get them in 3rd and long and make them pass on you, and then see how we get on with that. Make Hurts. Exploit his inconsistencies because he is a good player. He can make throws and he can get first downs with his legs, but he's not consistent. You wouldn't call him a pocket passer. So really, don't let him climb the pocket. Make sure you get the edges secure and try and stop the run and get them in 3rd and long, like he just keeps saying. They will make mistakes. They've been making mistakes all year, and we really need to capitalize on it. So those are kind of the keys to the game for me from the defensive point of view. But Craig, I know you said on the Saints Review pod, you asked, can we just be average in run and pass defense? But honestly, I can't see it happening. So, in your opinion, what area do you think the Giants should prioritize on Thursday Night Football? Stopping the run or stopping the pass?
It's like asking me if I want to fight a lion or a tiger. That is, I know they're not clicking, but on their day, that is basically what it is, isn't it? It's like, do you want to be flogged to death? It sounds counterintuitive because if there's one player on that team you don't want to have a good game, it's Saquon Barkley. But for me, it is defending the pass because it's the one thing we've been so crap at. It's the one thing that we almost need to force ourselves to do in order to get better maybe for the rest of the season, is to defend the pass. Against the run, we actually haven't been too bad. It's weird, if you take away like the one explosive running play that's happened over the last couple of weeks, we've actually been average against the run. It's just every so often we just let someone like Amarian Hampton just scamper off for 52 yards and all of a sudden our run defense looks like it's had a really poor game, whereas it actually hasn't, sort of thing. So for me, it would be at least try and defend the pass a little bit more and a little bit better than we have done, because I think if you defend the pass well, they're going to have to switch to the run because our pass rushers will get there.
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually. It's one of those things where, I don't understand what you mean, but a lot of Giants fans might feel like, just no matter what, use this as a training game and just sort of go out there and, like you say, work on stuff that needs working on. But if old Saquon Barkley comes away with 100+ yards and a couple of touchdowns, I know if you Giants fans see them there. But Aaron, talking about the Eagles' offensive line, it's a little bit banged up and it has been underperforming, relative to their talent. How do you think Shane Bowen and the Giants' defensive front should look to exploit that matchup?
Yeah, so I almost would turn this question around the other way and say, our defensive front and particularly Abdul Carter are leading the league in pressures and in certainly pressure time. The really important thing is the reason why we're not turning that high pressure rate into turnovers, into punts, getting off the field, getting to sacks, is because we're giving it up on the back end. And actually, I'm not worried about our defensive line. Again, the Eagles are maybe a top 5 unit on paper and haven't quite lived up to their potential. But I think our defensive line is going to win in most of its matchups. It's much more about how, that. I think obviously Spencer Rattler talking about how much we don't disguise our coverage. It really helps a quarterback if they know they can get the ball out quickly because they understood the coverage. It wasn't disguised, and they get the ball out quickly. It's a real problem. We're a bottom 5 team in disguise in the league. We're not doing anything fancy to try and disrupt that. And we know Jalen Hurts is not one of the all-time shred you passers. He's a very good dual threat QB. He runs the RPO game pretty well, but there's more of a one read type offense that he just runs really well. If we can make him hold the ball, make that bad decision, then we'll have a lot of success again. And the O-line, I don't think matters too much with our D-line.
Very, very true. For those who are in the comments, it is prediction time. So get those predictions in and we'll bring them up at the end. Let's have a look at the standings. Kev, obviously, we all didn't do too well last week, apart from Shane, who has moved to 4 and 5 on the season because he picks the Giants to lose more often than not. Kev's 2 and 5, Aaron 0 and 5, myself 1 and 5, Dan 3 and 5, and Shane 4 and 5. You can tell the optimistic people versus the pessimistic people there, can't you? However, it is all about this week and what happens in this game. As always, Kev, you are up first, so the floor is yours.
Yeah, I think I've gone for a 27-13 Eagles win. A little part of me is I think we'll do better than that, but I need to see it first now. I'm at the point where you need to show me that we can actually move the ball and score on people. And also, I'm kind of hoping for a bit of reverse psychology as well.
Aaron, is your reverse psychology continuing?
Well, I am nervous about not wanting to use the reverse psychology too much. So I have gone for a 28-20 Eagles win. I've kind of gone for that 7.5 point favorite, slightly on the overside of the points total. So maybe not a particularly aggressive prediction here to go along with what Vegas is saying. But I think there's an opportunity here for it to be close-ish. I'm hoping that it's not a blowout.
Kev, myself and you are clearly on the same wavelength because I have also gone for a 27-13 win for the Eagles. I just don't feel like this is the sort of game where we're going to win. We're coming up against a team that's pissed off because of what happened last week. They are dysfunctional. However, we are probably worse. And after what happened, we could be, as Chris said it earlier in the comments, I didn't bring it up, but we could be their Saints. Like, they could come into this thinking that, this is going to be a cakewalk, etc., and it ends up not being. But, are they going to give us 5 takeaways? Probably not. So we'll stick it there. Obviously, Dan and Shane aren't on, but they have sent their predictions through to me. Dan has 0 faith in our defense, it would seem, because he's gone for a 31-13 win for the Eagles. So the highest margin of a loss there. And Shane is lone wolfing by himself. No, he's not. He's not.
I was going to say, what?
No, he's not. He's gone for a 24-10. He actually thinks that we will score the lowest amount of points out of all of us there, 24-10. So it's a clean sweep for the Eagles. I think we're under no illusions here. It's going to be tough. It's going to be rough.
It will be. And we do have, like you said, it's a Thursday night football. So it's a long week. It's like a mini bye type thing, 10 days in between. Like, I kind of joked before by saying, like, use it as a training game. But, I mean, I would nearly look at it that way. I mean, don't look at the score so bad, but I'll look at individual players and see how they're playing and see what they're being asked to do and if they're actually, being able to execute what they're being asked to do. I think, this game will go a long way to how we play going forward. So like, again, use this game for what it is. We're not expecting anything from it. If we absolutely come away with a win, that would be phenomenal. I'd love to ruin their mood, like even more than it already is. The Eagles fan, that is. But it's almost like, okay, I want to start to see some signs of like, oh, I see what you're trying there. Okay, that's grand. Okay, that worked, blah, blah. I want to see elements of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. There are a few predictions. Tony got in early, 5 minutes into the episode. He put in a thing. So put him out there now. Giants beat the Eagles on Thursday. Kieran has gone 31-9 Eagles. So the highest of all of us, or joint highest with Dan, but the lowest. Darren, 28-7 to the Eagles. Holty, 35-10 to the Eagles. And Keith has gone nuclear with a 48-6 loss. I'm going to come back to that one in a minute. Chris is lone wolfing by himself.
Oh, Chris.
27-26 Giants walk-off touchdown.
That's the lad. That's what I'm talking about. I mean, I'll stay up for that.
Right. Before we disappear, I want to bring this back up again from Keith. 48-6, yeah. Hypothetically, if that happens, that's a bad look. That is a bad look at MetLife, yeah? One sentence answer, so we'll try and keep this short because I know we're sort of close for time. If they don't fire Dable, there needs to be a scapegoat. Is Shane Bowen that scapegoat? Kev?
Yes. Yeah, he will be. I mean, it's simple as that is nuclear. That is, like you said, that's something that is such a bad look. And it'll be a case of what's been the worst thing this year. And we all point to the defense. So unfortunately, I think he would be the casualty in that case.
Are you in agreement there, Aaron?
Yeah, I think if we're giving up 48 points, regardless of the last 6, I think it's Bowen. I'm not sure that fixes anything for us. But I don't really care. I'm sick of this defensive scheme. Roll anyone else out on the defensive scheme. Fix that side of the ball. Obviously, it's complementary football. The offense has to help the defense. 5 turnovers on the offense. Our defense did a pretty good job against the Saints to only concede 26 in the grand scheme of things. So, I think it really, that kind of explosion thing. I'm not expecting that. I'm expecting it to be closer. I'm expecting just to roll out the same thing against the Broncos in 10 days' time as well.
Yep, that is fair enough. I would agree with my own question. I think Shane Bowen will be the scapegoat at some point this season. It's inevitable. There's nobody else there that you're going to fire. Mike Kafka's survived much worse somehow, and has even survived not doing a lot for a season on game days other than sort of, assisting. So He's not going anywhere. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. However, that is all the time we have this week. We will be back on Monday for a review of this game and looking at the predictions. I can wait. I can wait for that one. Anything to add before we disappear, guys?
No, just it's great to get on with you boys tonight. And like I said, let's not get too wound up about tomorrow night's result unless it is Keith's prediction and nuclear. Let's sort of try and look for the positives, see what we've got to build on, and move forward and see how we get on with the Broncos the week after. And here's to another 250.
Yeah, absolutely, another 250. One final thing, it's not usually broadcast a halftime entertainment at the at Giant Stadium, but there is a corgi race at halftime, and I wonder if Cam Scatterboo is going to sneak into that race. He's got that dog in him after all, and height wise, he might be able to sneak into the corgi race, and I'd expect him to win that as well.
I'm going to take your point and go even more off on a tangent, because on the Pat McAfee show today, he showed off a clip from the weekend where his dog entered into the corgi race at halftime for the Colts. That is the fattest corgi I've ever seen in my life, and it did not want to run anywhere, to the point where Pat McAfee had to put the lead back on the dog and try and waltz him up, because Pat was like, he's not finishing this race. Like, he will finish.
He wasn't for the brand.
He was not for the brand. As always, like this video, subscribe to us on YouTube. You can also hit the bell to be notified of when we go live. If you aren't already, follow us on the socials at the bottom and rate us on your podcast platform of choice. My thanks go to Kev and to Aaron for joining me. All of you watching and listening, getting involved in the comments, we appreciate you all. Thank you so much for 250 episodes, and to the next 250. We are signing off until next time. Let's go Giants.